Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today I wanted to talk about a coastal machine that came to Naval pretty recently in the French coastal section. It is the Arras, and the Arras was always going to be one of those weird ones where it was either going to be really overpowered or it wasn't really going to do anything. Turns out it's a bit of both, depending on what you face when it comes to the matchmaker. Now, there is this weird thing in coastal for naval. You have vehicles which have absolutely no survivability, and then you have other vehicles which have a ton of survivability. And the Arras is in that ton of survivability section. It has a lot of crew, it has 103, and also has steel armor on the hull, meaning that it's a little bit harder to pen compared to the wood that a lot of other smaller machines have. So what this kind of culminates in is a very, very strong vessel against a lot of autocannons and against a lot of kind of lower caliber guns that you find. It also means if it ever faces a destroyer, which, sometimes it does, it kind of gets annihilated because it doesn't have enough armor to go on to those or to go against those large caliber guns. So that is a bit of an issue. The interesting thing about the Arras, though, is it also has access to the 138mm that are on some of the French destroyers. It actually gets two of them, plus a 75mm Model 1897, and then three 8mm Hotchkiss machine guns. So basically what it has is two 138mm and then a Donkey 75, and the 8mm I don't think I've ever actually seen shoot. They obviously are kind of like the AA defense on this thing, but this thing basically doesn't have any AA defense. I don't know what is up with the guns, but they just never fire. Maybe after the update they do. I did play this before the update, so it could be different, but at least when I played it, they just didn't bother. So against aircraft, you were pretty much done in, you got annihilated, but against everything else, you did okay. So these 138mm for France are really good. One of the things about France and their destroyers is if you have a look at their HE and you have a look at their common shells, the common shells actually hold a lot of explosive mass compared to a lot of other nations where when you start adding in the AP for these shells, they lose a lot of the HE filler. So, for example, in the standard high explosive shell for the Arras, it has 3.1 kilos of explosive mass and then also only 24mm of pen at its most, or mainly 36mm. When you have a look at the SAP that it has, it goes up to 104mm of penetration, but it also keeps 2.66 kilos of its explosive mass. So this means even with your shell, which pens a lot, if you hit a target that can basically get hull broken or overpressured because of the amount of explosive mass in it, you still donk vehicles. So you can bring shells, which are good not just against, coastal vehicles with low survivability, which you can pop in one hit. They're also very good against stuff like destroyers, because you're able to do a lot of damage to them with the 138s. Now, the reload on them is not great. The other thing about them is the firing arcs are not great. Like, that really has to be stated. And also, they are really slow moving around the guns at the same time. So you have to watch out for these kind of things. But if you are able to get the accuracy kind of dialed in on this thing, which nowadays, at least in Naval Arcade, you don't even have to think about, then this vehicle is going to be really, really good at hitting vehicles that are coming in. So for me, when I look at the Arras, I look at a vehicle which has massive amounts of potential to be able to donk on a ton of vehicles and just one-shot them when they can't really do anything back. And at 3.0, it faces a lot of those vehicles and does a lot of damage to them and bonks them. When we actually spaded this thing, we were going crazy in it, and it was because of the matchmaking. We're having a fantastic time just smashing up a lot of different units. Even after playing it a little bit more and playing it in a higher tier lineup, we still went 22 battles, 70 naval destructions, 15 deaths, and 1 air kill, surprisingly. But even before that, it was something like 50 naval destructions and 8 deaths with like a 70-75% win rate. This thing was just so easy to play because of the general matchmaking it finds. And it's because of a few factors. So number one, This vehicle in itself is a Subchaser, but it's a Subchaser with very large caliber guns. This means that it spawns within the coastal spawn. So you're able to bully coastal machines straight away. If you compare this to something like the Marne, which is also a Subchaser, this should be able to do it too. But a gunboat like the La Surprise or the River classes, the one in the British tech tree, and also the Croix de Lorraine class, which is also the River class in the French tech tree, this vehicle gets a destroyer spawn. So the Arras joins a long line of coastal machines, like the K2, for example, and then also even the River class and many others that were given coastal spawns and just absolutely annihilate most coastal vehicles because of the fact that they have guns, which if you just hit the coastal vehicle, they just blow up, right? But at the same time, if you gave it access to a destroyer spawn, what would happen is it would still do okay, but it technically would just be a worse destroyer in every way. And that would mean it would suffer in that general matchmaking. So overall, what you have here with the Arras is a vehicle stuck between two worlds, and these are the types of vehicles that completely break the matchmaking in coastal. There are other ones like the PR206, for example, which are really low survivability, but they have an extreme firepower, like in terms of how they're set up. So that is something which, is another kind of kettle of fish. But the vehicles that I remember that just fundamentally broke Naval, stuff like the K2 back in the day. There was also another one for Germany, the M802, which was just insanely powerful and still kind of is to this day. Also the Candid with its survivability. All of these types of vehicles which have this steel armor on them and then also quite a lot of crew means that they're just really hard to kill for a lot of PT boats and a lot of other vehicles. I was playing the 3.0 British, for example, stuff like the Fairmile, the Fremantle, and even stuff like the Fox themselves. The Fairmile is just laughable to try and survive at. It has 16 crew and is made out of a bunch of wood. But if you have a look at something like the Peacock, it does have the steel, once again armor, and has access to 30 crew, so a little bit more of survivability. And this leaves a lot of vehicles in coastal feeling really poor to play because you don't have the survivability to survive against something like the Arras. But the Arras doesn't really have the survivability to deal with destroyers, and that is kind of the crux of this whole situation. If there was different matchmaking for coastal and blue water, what would end up happening is the Arras would go up in BR and everything would be fine. But because there isn't, it's kind of stuck in this area where it gets to dominate a certain type of vehicle but not be able to kind of match up against another one. I personally think it should go up in BR anyway, just because it can do a lot of damage to destroyers anyway, especially if you can get the reload and the accuracy down on the guns, which in Naval Arcade is really not that hard to do right now. So it's just one of those which is just nuts. It's crazy in general. And during the event, which just went on the Strasbourg, there was a lot of people using it because of its survivability and also its maneuverability. It can take itself around corners very quickly. It can dodge torpedoes very quickly as long as you keep speed up. And if you one-shot the enemy, it makes it a lot easier to play too. So the Arras really didn't take long to spade. It also, at the same time, had pretty low modification costs compared to a lot of other machines that are at this BR, which are a lot harder to spade because you don't last as long. And because of the way that research works now, where length of time is very important, the Arras surviving meant that grinding it through was very easy to do too. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.